As the climate crisis persists, public transportation is a great asset in long-term mitigation for the rise of CO2 emissions. When considering cities like St. Petersburg and Tampa Bay in Florida, these are perfect examples of the importance of mass public transportation being in these cities. Public transportation benefits everyone by cutting down CO2 emissions significantly. Automobiles are the largest CO2 contribution for individual households. So, having public transportation as another means of transportation instead of automobiles improves the economy and allows households to save money as well. CO2 is a greenhouse gas that traps heat in the atmosphere and warms the planet. CO2 emissions are specifically from the burning of fossil fuels. This impacts Florida tremendously as St. Petersburg and Tampa Bay have a combined 23.5 metric tons of CO2 per capita. As sea levels have risen 7.5 inches from 1950 to today, this has caused a major need for dramatic changes to ensure better climate in these cities. Automobiles create enormous amounts of pollutants before they even begin running. Though it isn't clear if they cause disproportionate levels of pollutants more than others, policies and new technological advances have been created to improve this. But it still doesn't outweigh the benefits of public transportation. Public transportation offers an immediate alternative while reducing gas emissions and not affecting any mobility. However, 46% of American households don't have access to public transportation. Public transportation reduce CO2 emissions by 37 million metric tons annually. It also saves around 42 billion of gas and fuel annually in the US alone. Public transportations continue to be one of the lowest forms of carbon intensity in comparison to cars and even airplanes. Public transportation also boosts the economy. The public transportation industry employs over 400,000 people and is worth over 80 billion. It is a big economic growth opportunity as well as it continues to hold 20% more value within businesses and households at a higher rate near these systems than households and businesses that aren't. COVID-19 has had a negative impact on public transportation. Based off of the graph shown below, over 50% of Americans are using public transit less frequently or not at all, while 34% are still using it in the same amount as before. On the other hand, only 12% are using public transportation more, and only 11% are no longer using transportation whatsoever, and 3% are switching modes of transportation. This is due to an increase in uncertainty of being in confined public spaces while this variant continues. If you look at this graph, it highlights how post-COVID-19 outbreak would end and the travel restrictions are lifted. What kind of level of comfortability will consumers feel doing these activities? There's a 52% uncomfortability rate for using public transportation or rideshare, while a 40% within taking a train. This shows that although these restrictions are being lifted and the society essentially is getting back into the habit of travel again, consumers are still not quite there and are still hesitant using certain modes of transportation versus the level of comfortability that they are with using those modes. Therefore, my solution to this ongoing climate crisis in St. Petersburg and Tampa Bay is to invest in a $1 billion public transportation system that would run from Tampa Bay Airport to downtown St. Petersburg. This would also improve current public transportation systems along with the new one that was being built, which would have better accessibility within the stations itself and having more stops, along with essential COVID-19 safety measures. The plan itself would take probably up to 5 to 7 years and would need bipartisanship approval, as this is an environmental issue. Through implementing this public transportation system, it would be alongside the Tampa Bay Bridge and other highways, which would cause a decrease in CO2 emissions long term, along with the rate of automobile collisions, noise, and air pollution, while also providing approximately 50,000 jobs and boost tourism between these two cities, which would then increase economic growth for both of these cities. While keeping in mind of the solution to the ongoing climate crisis within St. Petersburg and Tampa Bay by implementing a new public transportation system, it's important to look ahead and acknowledge the fact that we need to take precautions due to COVID-19 and implement safety measures that would help the safety of these ride sharers, and that also includes their well-being and promoting their comfortability. It is also important to understand our own carbon footprint and the long-term effects on the environment. How we do that is by knowing how much each individual is contributing individually, so then they can begin to implement change within their individual lives that will lead to positive changes for our environment. That being said, as important as it is to implement individual changes in your life, it is also important to understand that we are at a point in our climate crisis where there needs to be dramatic and large structural changes to the way that we have been combating this climate crisis in order to continue to fight climate change and hopefully bring down our CO2 emissions, which is in dire need of coming down. Lastly, it's very important to invest more in public transportation, especially mass transportation, when you have cities like St. Petersburg and Tampa Bay that are only a bridge away and have large populations without essentially a transportation system that is accessible to everybody. It is very hard to continue that growth and continue to bring down these CO2 emissions. Having better access and quality of public transportation will not only increase ridership, it will also help mitigate our ongoing climate crisis, especially what is happening in these two cities.